Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the 41st episode of the Blacks in Technology audio podcast. I am your host this evening, Greg Greenlee. I'm the founder of the Blacks in Technology organization. You can check us out at www.blacksintechnology.net. Also check us out on Twitter, and that's at Black in Technology. That's BLKINTECHNOLOGY. Check us out also on the technology blog, Bit Tech Digest. That's bitdigest.net, BITDIGEST.net. What else? We're also on LinkedIn. We have a group there. You can check us out on LinkedIn. Just type in, do a search for Blacks in Technology. We'll show up there. There's a Google group or community. You can join that. And there's also a Facebook page. So check us out on all those social media avenues and, join in, participate, have fun. What are we going to do? Right now, I got a pretty special introduction here, and it's special because this person is also going to be a co-host as well as a new member of the Blacks in Technology team, and I'm excited because she definitely adds energy, she adds organization, and it's always great to have a co-host, have a separate, I guess, opinion on things and just another person to talk to, and it's just great all around. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce her. Ayori Salasi is the new co-host of the Blacks in Technology podcast. She is going to be co-hosting these podcasts with me as well as producing some podcasts on her own for Blacks in Technology. So Ayori, thanks for joining, and thanks for agreeing to be a co-host and a member of the BIT team.
Hey, Greg. No, thank you for, starting Blacks in Technology. It's been really great to see what you've been doing and to sharing this vision with you to increase Blacks' participation in technology. And, it's been a conversation that we've been having, regionally. And what I really like about what you're doing with Blacks in Technology is you're really providing a global focus by making this an online community and an online initiative. So thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Ayori, you were on one of our previous podcasts. You were a guest in, and it's actually one of the higher-ranked podcasts, a lot of views. But for those who haven't checked that out, for one, definitely go check that out. I think it's like episode maybe 36. But go ahead and give us your background in technology, a brief bio, and talk about, your technology background.
Yeah, sure. So I started in tech at a young age. I started at 11. That's when I started programming. My mom really made it important to us growing up that we should be involved in technology and leading technology. So this is way back, in the early 90s. And so I started consulting when I was 16, and I just basically built a career out of it. And I've been in startups. I've been in large global companies, and right now I'm enjoying myself at Salesforce.com as a product manager. And I also have a startup that I'm working with some really amazing folks on, and I dabble in the nonprofit space as well with my Pitch Mixer initiative to increase investment exposure to underrepresented minorities in the entrepreneurship space.
Excellent. And also throw in there also that you're a contributor to the Bit Tech Digest. You've written some excellent articles. Some of the best ones I think on there come from you. So definitely thank you for that.
Oh, no, that's a really amazing community, the folks who are contributing articles. I'm always fascinated that there are so many bright folks out there who are actually taking the time to write for the Bit Digest. And so I'm glad to be a part of that as well. there's another blog that I write for, also the Best of Sisters blog, which is part of the Anita Borg Institute, and it's focused around women in technology. So if there are women out there who want to see things from a little bit more of a women's perspective, that's a good resource as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I always find that it's a great thing for us to be producing content. And there's a gentleman, a brother who's into virtualization and cloud computing. His name is, of course, I'm going to forget now, Keith Townsend, of course. And he writes for, he has a blog, virtualizedgeek.com, and he also does video blogs as well. And, every time he puts something out, man, I just always retweet it. And because I think that's, important for what we're trying to accomplish with Blacks in Technology, which is, the visibility aspect. And then once people see the content and they see that it's good content, they see that it's very intelligent content, very technical oriented, then they see the whole perception of that change as well. So I always encourage people, and it's actually a good way to get your name out there and get seen by, potential employers as well. Keith, as a matter of fact, he was on a podcast not too long ago, and he was, the first time he's actually been on there twice, but the first time he was on there, he actually mentioned that, somebody actually sought him out because of his blog, and, just getting your name out there, putting great information, great content. I think that's a very valuable thing, especially for what we're trying to accomplish.
That is an amazing point. Thank you for making that point, Greg, because, when we talk about being professionals, being a professional is not just working a job. It's not just having a great career, but it's also really about presenting yourself as an expert and how you position yourself as a subject matter expert in whatever area that is your domain. And, the written word is really the only thing that we have that has continually transitioned from history to today. So there have been people in the past that have been great at things, but if they didn't write it down, nobody remembers them. So, what you're doing with the Bit Digest is you're encouraging more African Americans to make sure that their expertise is laid in stone in Word, and that it's going to be around for the next 10, 20, 30 years. I mean, forever.
Very, 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 very true. And just to correct you, it's our. Now, this is because you're part of the Bit team now, so it's not just me anymore. You're going to, breathe life into this and, take it and mold it and shape it and make it greater. So this is us.
It's a really, that's a great point. It's a community. It really is. There really is a we here. From the folks who are tweeting about it, from the folks who are having conversations in the chat, and our extended partners. Communities like Black Girls Code and Black Founders and the Bit House and all these different partners that we have out there who are doing the same thing. It's all part of one community and one voice.
I definitely agree. I just actually, we just had a new member sign up, I think yesterday, and I was actually chatting with her today. And what I love about, and this is, not to toot Blacks in Technology's horn, but this is what I love. And so usually when we have a new member on the Blacks in Technology site, you can go on there and you can chat. So there's real-time chat. So what I'll do is I'll reach out to somebody and say, hey, thanks for joining. It's great. Thanks for the support. And sometimes it, breaks out into a conversation. Sometimes it doesn't. But today there was a lady on there, and she's 48 years old, and she is going for her CCNA certification. And she just joined the site, and she was wondering if there were any CCNA study groups on the site. And at this time, there isn't. I think there's been people who have been wanting to do CCNA study groups, but it's never materialized. But I offered her, my help, and, we just got to talking, and, I was asking her, like, hey, have you seen this program? Have you, you can use this for studying, and, hey, have you tried this? She's actually in school right now, and she's going to school for, I think, network management, or I think that's what it was, and the course kind of centers around the Cisco, Cisco Networking Academy curriculum. But what's so great about it is that, is that she's able to connect with me, and I was able to tell her a couple of things. One, she's from Atlanta, and she was wondering if there were any other, members from Atlanta. So I was able to look up, and there was about 30 members, from the Atlanta area. And I, sent her the search query and everything like that. She was able to see all the people are from Atlanta. The second thing is that, I'm able to offer her help. So she told me that she's looks at taking the CCNA certification test by September, and just being able to connect with her and engage with her and say, hey, there are a bunch of CCIEs, a few on the site, as well as, some experienced networking people, including myself. So if you ever need any help with some concepts, if you ever need any help with, why this is, what this is or anything, here's a place that you can come, here's a place where you can ask questions, and here's a place where you can get help. And, she was thrilled. And I like seeing that, because that, really hammers home the whole, that's what community is about to me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's what community is about, and that's what makes the internet great. I was just at a conference, the Lone Star Ruby conference, last weekend, and one of the big principles they kept putting out there was pair programming and encouraging people to pair program. And it's something you can do remotely. You don't need to be sitting next to a person to find another person who's willing to help you, pop into the terminal and do some pair programming. So it's a great way that we can support each other no matter where we are with this great, age of the internet here we got going on.
Definitely. All right, so let's get into what we're going to talk about here. Oh, I want to, put out in the air that the Blacks in Technology is looking for volunteers to help with several initiatives. One being that we need, contributors to the Bit Tech Digest. So if you're a subject matter expert and you want your voice heard, and you like writing and you like talking about technology, we could definitely use your assistance in writing articles for the Bit Tech Digest. If you're interested, definitely send us you can send us an email, contact us at blacksintechnology.net. That's one of the initiatives that we are looking to help fill. The other one is social media duties. So we have several, and I mentioned earlier in the show, several social media outlets, Twitter, Facebook. I'd throw LinkedIn on there as well. We actually have a Google Plus community, and it's just a bear to have to keep up every single day, and you don't want to miss stuff. And if we put out a new podcast, it has to be posted here, has to be posted there. On top of the fact that new articles coming from the Bit Tech Digest needs to be sent out, and so we need help in and with that, with social media duties. Period. So if you're if that's your thing, if doing social media is your thing and you're real good at it, we can definitely use your help. Just use the email, contact us at blacksintechnology.net, and just, put in there that you're interested, and we'll get back with you. And the third thing, fundraising. We need help with fundraising. Blacks in Technology has been operating pretty much without it for the past 3 years, and I think it's about time. In order for us to accomplish a lot of the things that we want to accomplish in the future here, and that's, site redesign. We want to make the site more intuitive, more user-friendly, so we need a total site redesign. For content as well, spreading the word about Black people in the tech community. So those are, some of the initiatives that we need funding for. So we need people, who can help us find donors, who can make introductions, and just help on that fundraising front. So if you're that person, you want to help out, you want to contribute to a worthy cause. If you are if you believe in what we believe in, which is the visibility, creating a more positive perception and increasing participation for all underrepresented people in technology, then send us an email and say, hey, I want to help. Got anything else to add on that, Ayuri?
No, I think it's just it's great to show that as an organization, one, BIT is a professional organization, and that we're attracting a lot of professional people, and that this is a growing movement. And in order to keep up with scale, we need to be able to support these kinds of communities. And I think it says a lot that this organization has been around for a while and hasn't asked for money. And I think a lot of African American organizations tend to do that, but that also prevents you from being able to grow in the way that you need to. So I'm glad that that we are kind of prioritizing this and the importance of this to be able to further spread the vision. And I just really encourage people to be involved, and especially if you're a person who likes fundraising, please reach out to us because we're going to need you.
Definitely. And just to, rewind that back a little bit, this is what we've, accomplished as far as, member count and things like of that nature. So right now we're sitting at 966 registered members of the Blacks in Technology community site. That's 34 away from 1,000 members, which is, to me, is a feat. I never had any idea or, any expectation at all that this is what this would grow to. It was just me and a buddy of mine starting this and just looking for, somewhere for Black people in technology to convene and talk. And I never in a million years thought that it would even be close to 1,000 members. But not only that, we've got over 2,200 Twitter followers. There's almost 1,200 LinkedIn members. So that's, to me, is excellent. And I want to thank everybody who was involved with making that happen. Everybody who signed up and believes in what we believe in the movement. Thanks. And spread the word about Blacks in Technology. We're going to continue to march on and march forward, and we're going to continue to improve and get better, for everybody. So definitely want to thank everybody for their support.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about? Let's see.
So we were going to talk about the Google site reliability engineering conference.
Yes.
So interesting thing happened. Just came across my table. I got an email from Google, and they weren't telling me that my email usage was was reaching limit. So I checked it out. The email.
Wait, hold on for a second. Your email is close to reaching this limit on Google?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I had about 2 minutes left.
How does that even happen?
Yeah, I was one of the first people who signed up for Gmail when they were in beta.
Oh, okay.
And back then,
so you were an early adopter.
Yes, very early adopter. And so this was not one of those emails, though. Well, let me get back to the point. The email was actually about a class that they were offering called Site Reliability Engineering. And the site reliability engineering, for those who aren't familiar with that term, is basically this kind of emerging field that's around building and designing scalable distributed systems, and large systems like Google, like the Salesforce type systems and the Skypes and all of these great companies that are really just driving our digital age. And in order for these systems to run at the level of capacity that they need and to be having things like, 5 nines and higher in terms of reliability and being up, 99 point whatever % of the time, They have to have these types of engineers that have these really unique skill sets. And when I say unique skill sets, I mean this is not stuff that you learn in school. You can't go to even the best universities in the world and learn to do this type of work. This is the kind of work that you really only learn out in the field. And a lot of these site reliability engineers have come up through startup places, and they've kind of scaled with these companies, and they've learned a lot through trial and error, and now they're running all the great large distributed systems of the world. And so that's what this whole class was about. Google was offering a class to teach these concepts to people to try and increase the number of people who have knowledge of these particular skills.
Very, very interesting. So this was this a class or this was a conference?
This was a class. It was a 3-day class that was It was hosted in Mountain View, and it was taught by the actual engineers at Google, and it was really incredible. I mean, there were probably about maybe 30 people in the class, so it was a very small class. It was the first one that they've ever done of this type, and it was really awesome to be there. I was really glad to have been invited to participate in it. And, you know, they gave us mentors who sat with us and helped us go through these different types of assignments that they gave us, where basically the whole point of the 3 days is that we would design an architecture that's intended to scale for a certain type of service. And then, we would be faced with new scalability challenges, and then we'd have to kind of work through those challenges, and then ultimately learning to manage failure of your systems. Because, and this is something that really struck me, is that Google, one of their main principles is that failure happens all the time. Yeah. And so, but what they do is they serve in spite of failure. So we very rarely see the impacts of any errors or failures at Google, even full system-wide failures. We rarely see the impact because they've designed their systems so well to be able to manage them. And this course was all about teaching those concepts and passing that knowledge on.
Pretty interesting. Now, what this sounds like to me, and they call it site reliability engineering, is some of the concepts around DevOps, development and operations, and some of the core concepts that they use as far as high scalability, distributed systems, and also working with other teams, other departments like development in order to make that happen using, whatever tools or configuration management tools like Chef or Puppet and things like that. So it sounds very, very interesting. Now, tell me, you mentioned that these skills aren't something that's taught in college. So, in the college you can get, management information systems degree, or you can get a computer science degree. Why? Tell me this. What's the difference between this SRE and, say, something like computer science? But why do you think that these types of skills are not taught in college?
Well, that's a really good question. And I can say back when I was coming up, computer science was a profession, right? But graphic design was new and emerging. Graphic design was an emerging field that was morphing from print design. And even when I was going to school, when I was in college, people were still teaching me to lay type settings. When in my mind, I thought it was completely insane, because I know that all the jobs I was able to get were all using Adobe Photoshop. Why are you teaching me to set typesettings. This is crazy. Or don't teach me about the printing press. Teach me about, Acrobat.
Gotcha.
So it's the same thing that's happening now. And you mentioned DevOps and stuff like that, and that's great because we are seeing a lot more conversations about DevOps and the importance of DevOps.
Yeah.
But to add to that, site reliability engineering is more than operations. It's they have these entirely different engineering concepts that they have to learn. It's like a lot of this technology is not coming from their R&D teams, and they are coming out of these engineering groups that are specifically focused on being able to design, implement, and manage scalable systems. So they're not only using systems like Splunk to manage their data, but they're creating these types of systems also.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's very much they're facing new problems every day that companies haven't built the tools for these things, and so a lot of times they're having to build these tools themselves, and they're having to solve new problems in new ways, and they're able to lean on some of their engineering experiences to do that. But you're biting off a whole new flavor here. It's completely different. So a lot of it is really just having an open mind, having a diverse set of experiences, understanding how you solve for business problems, how you identify for business problems, how you do analysis, how you do design and development, and monitoring, and all these things at scale, which, I mean, the level of scale that we're talking about these days when we talk about distributed systems is like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around it. One of the things that one of the mentors mentioned is that when you're designing systems like this, once in a while becomes twice a day. And I've worked on projects, where, folks will say, oh, yeah, that's an exception. It only happens once in a while. But once in a while, it happens twice a day. So it's not once in a while anymore. It becomes the norm. And so now you have to design systems that address exceptions as the norm. Your exceptions are the norm. So it's a completely different way of thinking, and I really got a kick out of it. It was super exciting for me. But just to sort of speak a little bit about how this field is emerging. I mean, there are other companies that are hiring for these type of talent as well. Yelp is hiring, Spotify, LinkedIn, StubHub, Facebook. All of these companies are hiring for people with this particular skill set. And why I think this is especially relevant to our audience, the folks who listen to
I was just going to say that,
Right? Yeah, I think it's especially relevant because we have folks on here that are like system admins, that are like DevOps, that are network engineers, that are already exposed to these systems, to the inner workings of these systems. So really just another step up to say, let me look at these problems from a different perspective and start creating solutions for them. It's not a big jump. And the great thing is that you don't need a certification for it. You don't need to go to school for it. You just have to start kind of exposing yourself to these concepts and trying to find opportunities to learn about these problems and solve for these problems. And there are opportunities that are out there to do that.
That's very interesting. And I just want to talk about, you're mentioning about the engineering and everything behind it, because I think a lot of people take for granted, how things work, and that things work, period. So Google, never down, you never experience any type of system malfunction or anything. You don't see that, and even other companies like let's say, for instance, like Tumblr. There was actually a thing we were going back and forth on Twitter about someone had mentioned that, look at Twitter. I mean, look at Tumblr. That's just a blog site. Anybody can. And, I kind of had to pause him for a second and say, you don't know this, what's behind Tumblr. Let me show you. And I directed them to a blog posting on highscalability.com. And it talked about, about their infrastructure and about how they scale and about everything that's involved with having a huge, infrastructure like Tumblr, and how they, handle scalability, how they handle their distributed systems. And it pretty much made that person go, oh, yeah, I didn't realize that. A lot of people think, oh yeah, you can. Who can't make a Tumblr? You can just throw Tumblr up and blah blah blah. And it's like, no, you can't. You need to understand the behind the scenes inner workings of what it takes to scale something like a Tumblr. And now, if you and Tumblr isn't even on the same level as Google. Now, imagine a Google or a Facebook.
Yeah, no, really, really good point. Actually, that's a great segue into some of the things that I learned over the course of those 3 days. First of all, my brain was like completely filled to capacity, and I felt like I was back in school. I mean, I could show you my notes. It was hilarious. Actually, I did. I shared my mind map with you. Yeah,
you see, yes, and that was was pretty daunting.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is over 3 nights. This is after I've come back from work, and and I'm a mom, so that was no easy feat to process all of that information. But one of the things they had these on the first day, they taught us 10 principles of distributed system design, and rules for scaling systems. And so I can talk about a couple of them. I'll just mention
definitely
5 of them. Because, I mean, I'm actually in the process of writing a 3-part blog post about these concepts, because it's way too much for one post. But one of the first concepts that they taught was keeping servers simple. And, in projects and project development, we usually hear KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? And this is that same concept, just applied to systems, wherein if you're going to design a system, you don't want to have a single app server that's processing various different types of requests. You don't want to mix your image uploads with serving your thumbnails and a variety of different types of services on a single server. And this was really interesting. And I said, well, why is that? Because we do that all the time, don't we? Right?
Yeah.
Get your server, you set it up, you put your database on it, you put your server, you put your app server technology on it. Everything is running out of there. You've got your mail coming out of it. Everything is in that one server, and you're like, yeah, look at what I did. This is awesome, right?
Yeah.
Google doesn't like that. Google doesn't like that. Distributed systems don't like that. And the reason why is that you're widening your failure domain. And by failure domain, it basically means, okay, when something goes wrong, what is the impact of something going wrong? So if you have all of these services operating out of a single server and something happens and that server goes offline, well, now you've actually impacted your capacity across your entire system.
Yeah.
That's not. And so rather, they keep their servers really simple, so you've got an architecture that allows for specifically designated servers that all they do is search, servers that are specifically dedicated to serving ads, servers that are specifically dedicated to uploading images, servers specifically dedicated to serving thumbnails. And these servers are replicated at scale, so you've got hundreds, thousands of these single type of servers across all your different pods, and so that allows you to better measure and predict the capabilities of your system, It allows you to plan for scalability and future capacity better. And it allows so that if something does go down, if you have one server that goes out, it affects, the failure domain is smaller. It's affecting a specific type of system. You know immediately what impact it's going to have across your whole system, and you're not freaking out because you know, and you can let it go, and you can redistribute your load, and you keep going and have somebody go and address that server in the morning rather than at midnight.
I like that. I was actually just reading a book by Gene Kim called Invisible Ops. I think that's what it's called, Invisible Ops. It actually mentioned exactly the concept you're talking about, which is causability, and how so many companies waste so much time just trying to track the problem down, as opposed to even getting to the point to where they can, start fixing it. And this all centers around, the change management and everything like that. And what they were basically trying to say is that, some of these companies, they don't have good change management policies, and so what they found is that when there's an issue or an outage, if you don't have good change management implemented, then you're searching around trying to find out exactly what caused your outage. This is what I like about Google is that they're talking about, hey, this is what we're doing. We're separating out these services so that you know exactly when a service goes down, what caused it. It's not because of this parent service caused this other service, to go out. It's because this service is segmented over here, so we know exactly where to go, how to handle it, and get it back online. And causability.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a great point. And that was an entirely separate principle where they talked about transparency. We hear folks talk about transparency in terms of business, but very rarely do we hear people talk about transparency and systems design or development or engineering. And it's really just about designing your system so that they can inform you about how they're doing, and provide visibility into the internal state of your systems, so that your jobs are not a black box. And I just thought that was really cool because although I've worked in companies where we've done that, and Salesforce certainly does that to a really great degree, I didn't never thought of it as a principle, but being able to literally access the state of any type of system or job and being able to monitor that, having that data exported regularly so you can assess the state of it in the instance of a large failure, and things like that, being able to access it in a way where it makes sense, where it's in plain language. People design the systems to do that, Very rarely can you just go out and buy a product and it's just going to tell you this stuff. DICE is a good system, Splunk is a good system, but there are other systems out there as well and many of them are literally just created by these engineers to inform you of how a service is performing.
Nice. Here's a question. So this is a pretty much an invite only type of class, right?
It was, yeah. I'm not sure how they determined who they invited or why, but it was a very small number of people in the class.
How long do you think it's going to take before this actually becomes, and this is not as far as college, but just Google offering this as some type of online course? Do you see something like that happening in the future where they offer this as maybe, and Google is all about, doing stuff for free and throwing stuff out there for free. Do you think this will be something that they'll say, hey, this is something that's needed? This is, we already know that it's needed right now. There are already companies out there that are faced with this task of scaling high, scaling pretty high. So do you think this is something they're going to say, hey, this is knowledge that a lot of people need right now, and we're going to provide that knowledge in the form of some type of online class?
I think it's a logical leap. I don't know how much time it would take before something like that would start to happen. Certainly, I think it would be amazing if they did that. And certifications is another thing. I mean, Google is a company, and we think of them as Gmail. We think of them for the Google Docs and the search and the Gmail, et cetera. But Google provides for a cost API services for a variety of different things that many, many, many companies are using. And so these are concepts that are really highly valuable to Google's customers who are actually paying them lots and lots of money. So I could see that that they would be a leader in terms of expertise around these topics, and that it's foreseeable that they might start to issue some types of certifications around that. Google search.
Yeah. That'd be pretty cool, actually. I'm actually there's actually a YouTube channel called Hangops. That's HANGOPS, and they actually get some pretty good engineers, operation engineers from some various companies, and they get on there and they have like a hangout and they talk about operations. I think it's pretty cool. I've actually watched quite a few there. They've got quite a few episodes out there, and they actually there's a link on that channel. I can't remember the name of it, but it's for some type of online operations type of. It's not a class. It's more or less. Hold on. It looks like more like it's just a curriculum of things that like you need to know if you're going to be an operations position, and you're faced with the task of scaling. And they actually go through all these different domains and things like that of stuff that you need to know, and they got it listed out on here. And they have links to other sites where you can get more information. I can't remember the name of it, but when I remember it, I'll put it in the show notes. But it's pretty interesting. The Hangops is pretty interesting. It's just a bunch of operations guys and girls as well. They get on there and they talk, operations, some of the stuff that, I'm pretty sure that you talk about or you learned in the SRE class. It's pretty interesting. What else can you tell us about the class? What else did you learn?
Let's see. I'd say probably the last two things that is probably worth mentioning is the emphasis that they put on anticipating the future. And sometimes I have conversations with people, and they say things like, "Oh yeah, well that's not my job," or our product managers do that, or things that just sometimes seems to make me think that people are limiting the scope of their duties in ways that aren't necessary. And so when Google talked about the concept of anticipating the future, certainly there are people in Google who are specifically dedicated to capacity planning and things of that nature. But that's something that I think all engineers and administrators would increase their value if they were aware of the importance of anticipating the future just across the board. I mean, if you're managing the databases for a company that does images, that serves up images, and a new camera comes out, and that new camera has larger sizes on their files. Well, product management may be aware that that's a new technology that's available, but are they necessarily monitoring the systems to determine, what size of the size of the files being uploaded are increasing. I think that's something that a lot of people who are managing the systems and monitoring the systems might notice more than product managers. And so these are things that if you know the importance of capacity planning and these concepts, that you can actually realize that all of these systems and monitoring and things that you're looking at on a regular basis are able to do more than just troubleshoot issues. You're going to actually use these very same tools to plan for the future, to identify increasing spikes in traffic. That means that you may have a capacity plan, a capacity issue coming up shortly. And, yeah, you are going to need to order those servers sooner than your project managers have planned. And you might need to be the one to sound the alarm. And that's something that I think when people start to get in the concept of just really knowing that this is a full system and that the scope of your work never really ends, I think you allow yourself to play in a whole different league, of professionalism. And so I always encourage people to just think outside of your role, and don't limit yourself by things like that. And so they talked a lot about anticipating the future. A good example that they gave, actually, that stuck with me was the Taiwan floods in 2011, where those floods, it was a natural disaster, right? It was a horrible tragedy, but it caused massive hard drive shortage. And
I remember that.
Businesses, they needed these hard drives and they couldn't get them. And so what did they have to do in the interim? They had to figure out ways of stretching the services and the capacity that they currently had until they could get those new hard drives. And that's stuff that's work that people had to take on, and slightly tweak design on things and things of that nature to be able to, stretch out until they could get the hard drives that they needed.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that hard drive shortage too, because I think during that time we were actually trying to get hard drives for something, and we had a hard time getting certain sizes because there was a shortage. But that's definitely excellent advice. I think I'll actually you're teaching me something. I like that. That's good advice for systems. Yeah, definitely. For systems peoples out there, operations peoples, period. That's great advice. I
think the last thing I'd probably throw out there is something that I think is also missed by some IT folks, because user experience, we have this whole new field. I mean, it's coming. It's big, right? A lot of people want to go into user experience. And it's something that is not just about design, right? User experience is a really wide range of things that you have to consider. Performance, for example, is a part of user experience. And the consistency of services being available to an end user is a part of user experience. So if your ads aren't showing up where they normally show up, or if they aren't showing up at all, that's a part of your user experience. And so they talked about a couple of tools that I just want to throw out there. Selenium and Jenkins, and especially Jenkins, because it's a tool that you can use to basically do testing, and it goes beyond just testing code for the service that you engineered to provide it to deliver a service, but it can actually go into the details of every little thing that you have, whether it's config files, whether it's validating config files and making sure that your data cleanup is happening and things are not colliding in places. You can learn these types of technologies, automated testing, that can really can go a long way. So I just encourage people to get out there, like just Google Jenkins. It's an open source tool. You can download it, you can set it up and start trying things out. I mean, just make sure you get that kind of thing on your resume, because it just needs to be there. you just need to know something about it.
Yeah, and I've heard, like I said, when I watch those Hangouts, they definitely mention using Jenkins, and I listen to some DevOps podcasts as well, and they always mention that. And another thing, I don't know if they mentioned that at the SRE class, but did they touch on Chaos Monkey?
No, I didn't. What is Chaos Monkey?
Well, from what I can gather, Chaos Monkey is basically a program that is designed to cause failure, right? So when you're architecting, or when you've architected infrastructure for high availability, this program will go in and start shutting things down to see how resilient your architecture really is. So there's a bunch of companies that these high availability companies that actually use this, and they just say, hey, go shut this down, or go make this malfunction, and see how resilient our service really is.
No, that's a good point. I mean, they talked about disaster recovery, and a lot of folks in the class were shocked to learn that Google and not only Google, but Facebook and all these other companies perform disaster recovery exercises in production. Production.
Wow.
With production data. Yeah.
Nice.
And I know about it because I participated in these types of things, in these types of exercises. But they do perform them at Google once a year, where they'll actually take down systems, and then people have to get it back up. They have to go through everything and get it back up and running. They do another thing that was also really cool and just, I don't know, got me excited. They play random sort of tricks where they'll just do a drill, and they'll take services down randomly, and people will have to kind of troubleshoot and figure it out. And they know exactly what they've taken down, and they have people in place that can identify if something else has actually gone wrong, and in addition to what they planned for, and resolve issues so that they don't impact customers. But they do this to their teams to keep them on their toes, and also to see how good they really are. When they're actually needing to bring these systems back up, because disaster does happen, and you have to be prepared for it. And the thing is that when things go wrong, you never just follow the process to bring it back up.
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about, Greg. You can document.
Oh yeah, I've got a story for you right after you finish with this.
Yeah, it's just never as simple as you think it is. I mean, even if you say, oh, yeah, we've designed rollback scripts. Okay, you run your rollback scripts and they're failing. Oh, why? Because you hit something, and you're constantly going to be in these situations when you're troubleshooting yourself out of something, because nothing ever happens the way you expect it to.
Yeah, very good point. The book that I'm reading now, The Invisible Ops, actually talks about the MTTR, which is the mean time to resolution, and saying how a lot of the times the fact that you don't go through these practices, for disaster recovery, and that just makes your mean time to resolution that much longer. But the story that I have about that is, so I go into work today, and there is a ticket in the queue about somebody's server that went down. They're a co-location customer, so when customers or clients are co-location customers, they're pretty much they put their equipment, their servers or whatever, inside our data center, and we provide all the other extracurricular services such as cooling, power, internet access, things like that. Now it's up to them to maintain their stuff in their cage or their cabinet or whatever. So if they have a failure, then it's up to them to fix it. Where one of the clients came in and he said, he tried to do a remote reboot, didn't work. He said he sees that the file system is mounting read-only and blah, 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 and, if we could take a look at it. So we went and hooked up we actually went out there and looked at it, and everything looked fine from the outside, meaning there was no amber blinking lights on the server or anything like that. But when we hooked up a crash cart to it, a monitor and keyboard, we noticed that 2 of the drives had failed in the RAID set, right? And they only had 3. Usually when 2 drives fail in the RAID set, it's kaput. But the biggest thing to take away from this is that, we can throw, 2 new drives in there and we can restore it from a backup. And the guy was like, I don't know if the backups have been running. And it's like, oh, okay. So now you don't have backups to restore this data. You're pretty much you're in trouble here. The other part of that is, so he had a backup from May. It's July now, so he had backups from early May and tried restoring those. The problem is that if you don't do this disaster recovery scenarios, if you don't do this once a year or whatever, and you go to and you actually have a problem and you go to try to recover and it doesn't work, you're in trouble. And this is exactly what happened to this guy. He went to try to do recover from an old backup because he hadn't tested it or he hadn't, tried to recover from any of those old backups before. He got to a point and tried to recover and it didn't work. So it's just like, these people have like certain things in place. Some people don't even do disaster recovery at all, which is a sin to me. But even if you don't do it, say for instance you do the extent of your disaster recovery or just backups, if you don't test those backups, you have no idea if it's when it really comes crashing down if you're going to be able to recover. So I mean, it's just a good thing to know that companies like that, even though that they're designed to scale and there's a design for high availability, that they actually create these scenarios that systems and services are taken down, and so that they can practice recovery from them. I think that's,
no, that's huge. And I mean, I've been in scenarios similar to that, not in my current company, but I've been in situations similar where, all of a sudden you find out you've got huge partitions of your databases that are corrupt and your system can't read it, and you've got customers depending on that data. And, oh, by the way, the backups haven't run for a week. Oops. It's crazy. So, and I just want to throw something out there since we're talking about these things. Yeah. So there is a process called postmortems that companies have to learn how to do. And Google talked about the concept of a blameless postmortem, which I highly respected. And we do those at Salesforce also, where anytime something goes wrong, we go through the process of identifying exactly what happened, exactly why, and exactly what we're going to do to prevent that from ever happening again. Because if you ever have problems happening more than once, then you have an even bigger problem. And so solving that problem is huge. And I encourage people, I don't care what your role is, regular contributor, if you see issues happening in your company's operations and how they're doing things, you should bring it up. I mean, you should bring it up. It's important. And I've seen people bring it up. And there's a right way to bring it up. With a solution-oriented way, not as a complaining way, but bring it up and be a part of the solution. So if you know that the methods that you're taking backups are failing, aren't consistent, if you know that you haven't done a disaster recovery exercise on anything ever, tell somebody that needs to be done and say, I'll stay over the weekend and do it. Because guess what?
Yeah.
If you do that, you're gaining experience on your resume for your future.
Yeah.
Be able to have said, oh, by the way, I've done it. It's huge.
Yeah, I agree 100%. A lot of people are just a lot of people like to go with the flow. They don't want to shake up what's normal around their company. Some people just simply don't care, but for those people that do and they want to make a difference, especially when it comes to bolstering their resume. I mean, stuff like that you do, you can put on your resume. You can say, yeah, I was part of initiating disaster recovery practice at my job. And you've been through it. You have the experience now. You know the steps. And if you go into another company that's having that is valuable to them. Now you're of value. So definitely good advice. Definitely. All right. Moving right along. By the way, that was, that's excellent. Talking about Google SRE, and hopefully, are the classes over with? Are you done with them, or?
Yeah, it was just a 3-day class.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'm done with that. But I did have some fun while I was there, and I did meet some really awesome people who were there, had some great conversations. I met other people who were in the class also. I met a young woman from DreamWorks. I met a woman from Microsoft, and I met some folks from startups. And, I was able to learn from them as well. And I also rode the Google bike around. And that was just fun.
What's the Google bike?
So on the Google campus, these campuses are huge. And they have over 1,000 bicycles in their fleet.
Wow.
And these bicycles are just sitting around all over the campus. And, when you're going from one meeting to the next, people they grab a bike with a basket, they drop the bag in the basket, and they ride over to wherever their next meeting is. And so folks get around like that. And it was cool. So, I had to ride one of the Google bikes.
That's nice. And here's another plug for, if you haven't checked out the book, In the Plex, definitely check it out. I think it's written by Stephen Levy, I want to say. But it's all about, Google, how they came up. It's not really technical, but it does give you some insight into how they operate, what they look for as far as, engineers and how they go about building systems. And it actually touches on what you were talking about earlier about, they design their stuff for scale, and they design it for failure as well. And it touches on that, but it's not too technical at all. But it does tell you like how they go about, what their thought process was behind, let's use, for one, really inexpensive parts, because we know that parts are going to fail. And so let's put that as part of the equation and just design it for failure. So it touches on that. It's definitely a good book, definitely a good read. It's called In the Plex.
Yeah, I'm going to have to read that one. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Check it out.
So before we move on to the next topic, I just want to make sure I put another plug out there for folks. Make sure you go and check out our blog, the bitdigest.net, because there will be blogs on this with more detailed information that you can use to learn more about what SRE is, learn more about scalability concepts, and just step your game up. So check it out.
There you go, people. Step your game up. Is that going to be the title?
That's a good idea, actually.
Your game up. Google SRE.
I like it. I'll give you credit on that one too, Greg.
All right, so we're going to go in and we're going to touch a little bit, because we're going on an hour plus right now. But this is a good hour plus. But we're going to talk about conferences. I know you've attended a couple of conferences recently. I've attended conferences in the past. I haven't attended a lot this year, but I was actually putting together a blog post about this, and it was, tentatively called Tech Conferences, Where Are We? Right? And it's pretty much just the premise behind it is talking about, and the whole theme around, I guess, every time I hear somebody talk about, oh, yeah, I went to a conference, and the first thing, there weren't many of us there, right? And when it comes to these really high technical conferences, it always bugs me that we have so little representation now. It either is, and I talk about this all the time on the podcast, either is, attendees or speakers, especially as speakers, though. But, just as attendees, these conferences are informative. Not only that, great networking opportunities, and it's a great way for you to actually, for one, talk to other people who are, doing pretty much the same thing you are. So if there's a, VMware conference or something like that, these are people, your peers in the field, and some of them, will know more than you. Some of them will, not know as much. But just being able to talk about or talk to other people that are doing things in their company and the way that they're doing is valuable. So it always bugs me when I go to conferences and I don't see many people of color there at all. A couple of years ago, there was a VMware conference here in Cincinnati at the convention center, and there were probably out of, 1,500 or more attendees. I probably counted and talked to, I was really pushing blacks in technology hard, so I made sure that I went up to every black person that I've seen and talked to them. I'd say maybe 10 in an entire conference. 10.
Wow.
And it just always amazes me that, so where are we? Why are we attending these conferences? Just want to kind of touch on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that is a huge question. I think that question itself could go on for an hour. Literally.
Yeah.
And, what we can do about it, and why are we seeing low participation? And, maybe there's some other folks that we can invite into this conversation as well.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Turn this into another podcast episode and talk about, these technical conferences. And let's get it out there. I'm going to put it out there. When I say technical conferences or technology conferences, I am not talking about, and this is not throwing a jab at anybody, but I'm not talking about conferences that focus around blogging. I'm just going to say that. This is not these type of conferences. This is more conferences like, so there are conferences that talk about some of the concepts, some of the things that you learned at the SRE classes. There are entire conferences devoted to that. These are conferences, more or less devoted to or targeting systems admins, engineers, some virtualization engineers, infrastructure engineers, these type of people. And I always notice, and I follow quite a few people on Twitter, just the number of people that will talk about other type of conferences, some of them more entrepreneurial, some of them more towards the consumer electronics part, and more on even more on the blogging side of things. But not a lot of people talk about these hardcore technical conferences and talk about participating in those. And I'm just, like I said, this could be a whole entirely, another podcast, but I just want to put it out there. This is definitely something that we need to work on, I think, and start attending these conferences and soaking up this knowledge. But not only that, but if we are talking about changing things, changing visibility, changing the perception, right, these conferences must be attended. and we can attend them. We can even talk about them and say, hey, here's some conferences, blah, blah, blah. Let's meet up. Maybe getting more people, who look like us to attend them will start something and, start other people like looking at these conferences and, oh, okay, hey, so-and-so is going to be there. All right, maybe I'll look into it or look into going.
Yeah. I would relate it directly to the conversation that we've been having for years and years and years about Black participation in the music industry, wherein we have a lot of artists, but we don't have as many folks writing or producing or running the record companies. And so this is the same thing. I mean, when we see folks being involved in the marketing of technology or the social media aspect or the social aspect of technology, but not participating in the open source community that's driving the technology, or developing engineering groups that are designing the architectures and scaling these systems, then we're missing a huge, huge part. I mean, social media is the tip of the iceberg, and we really need to get into the meat more. So I would just throw out, and I'm definitely, if we do another an hour long on this one, I definitely want to participate in that one. But I just throw out the resource. So if you don't know how to find a conference that's relevant to your industry or to the things that you're interested in, go to lanyard.com. That's LANYRD, and you can go there and you can find conferences. And that's how I find what conferences I need to attend. I'm happy to share best practices on, getting access to conferences when you don't have any money.
Hey, that's invaluable. A lot of people. That's a lot of people. No. That's a lot of people's hang up with some conferences is that they're expensive or they don't have the money. Some people, are already struggling to make ends meet, let alone having to fork out $300 or $400 just for the conference admission. That's not even counting travel, hotel stay or anything like that. That can add another $1,000 to it, depending on the location of the conference. That type of information is definitely helpful. So we're going to do as a matter of fact, let's just say that's going to be, within the next couple of podcasts, we're going to actually do one on conferences. So we already have an agenda. That's what it is.
Like it.
So touching on conferences, are there any conferences that you know of that's coming up that you're either might be attending or just know about?
I just Distill is the Engine Yard's conference. Engine Yard, they build a bunch of tools that folks use for development, and they have a conference that's going to be in San Francisco on Treasure Island. They actually got the founder of Atari, the founder of Chuck E. Cheese, and like a bunch of folks who are going to be presenting on topics ranging from robotics to software, Python, Ruby, different languages, and also just kind of where things are going as far as technology. So, and actually, I got my tickets to Distill for $20 when it's a $300 conference generally.
Oh wow!
Because there's a Facebook deal going on right now. So I'll send you the link so that when you post the podcast, you can include the link to the discount for folks.
Excellent. I think the next one that I'm going to be attending, I used to go to the Linux conference that they had up. There were a few Linux conferences that I used to attend. There was one in South Carolina, called the Southeast Linux Fest. There was one up in Columbus, Ohio, that I used to go to every year called the Ohio Linux Fest because I'm a big, proponent of open source and, Linux and everything Linux. So used to attend that. I didn't go last year. I did go the year before, but I didn't go last year. Hoping to go this year. But DerbyCon, which is more of a security/hackers conference, is in Louisville, Kentucky. And I've been there the past couple of years, and I plan on going back there this year. A lot of big names in security show up there. Kevin Mitnick, There's a guy called Iron Geek. He runs IronGeek.com, a real big name in security. I can't think of what the other guy's name. I think he created Metasploit. What is his name? I cannot think of it. That's terrible. But that guy is always there. Always great, super informative talks as well. And they usually, there's a DerbyCon website, and I think they usually post all the videos. I think Iron Geek actually posts most of the videos on his site from the conference. And actually, if you have a Roku device and you could subscribe to different channels on there, there's actually a DerbyCon channel where they post all the videos. So you can subscribe to that channel for free if you own a Roku. It might be on other streaming devices as well. I'm not for sure, but I have a Roku, so that's the one I know. And you can go and you can subscribe to the channel, and you can watch every single talk that they had at DerbyCon. A lot of high, technical talks about security, about hacking, things like that. But it's definitely a great conference to go to. Again, totally underrepresented whenever I attend that conference. But, it's a fun conference anyhow.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great. Yeah. That's awesome.
So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. That's episode number 41. Be on the lookout for upcoming episodes, especially the one about conferences. As a matter of fact, what we're going to do is we're going to put together a list of some great conferences that you should attend, or if you can attend them, try to get to them, as well as, we'll include URLs and all that stuff, and we're going to talk about them. But we're also, the most important thing is we're going to talk about the importance of attending these technical conferences and what we can do to increase our participation and increase our visibility there at these conferences. So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight and listening in. You got any closing words, Ayuri?
No, just, thanks again, Greg, for putting all these great podcasts together and spreading, the information to, across our community and encouraging people. So looking forward to the next podcast.
Excellent. All right, everybody have a good night. Thank you.
Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.